Here at the Diet Science Revolution, we focused on science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition therapy. You cannot depend on the TV to tell you what's good for you and what is bad for you. So after extensive research, I compiled this list of foods that harm the body. I'm just going to go ahead and apologize in advance. Okay, first on the list is corn. There's a couple different types of corn, but the biggest concern out there is Bt corn, which is corn that's been genetically modified to make the pesticide Bt. It naturally makes it and excretes it. So when a bug lands on it and eats the corn, it causes the stomach of the bug to explode. Now it says that there's been lots of research that says that it does not make it to the table by the time it's harvested and put into our food system, but independent studies that are not backed by the biotech companies have shown that it's been in breast milk and things like that, so it does make the table. And also there's a Roundup Ready corn where it can be sprayed with Roundup over and over again, and it is immune to the Roundup, the weed killer Roundup, which contains a chemical called glyphosate, which by the World Health Organization and MIT has been classified as a carcinogen. So it does cause cancer. Next on the list is soy. Soy is very bad. About 93% of all soy in the United States is Roundup Ready soy, which we discussed about corn. Can be sprayed over and over again with Roundup, and that makes it to the table. Another problem with soy is there's parts of the soy which have carelessly been making its way into the whole soy mixture now, where it has xenoestrogen properties, which means that it mimics estrogen in the body when you consume it, and it actually thinks that you have high levels of estrogen. So this can cause issues with men, testicular cancer, gynecomastia, where the man actually can grow breasts and things like that. And then it can cause, especially if you're putting glyphosate on top of it, breast cancer in women and things like that. So soy is another one that you want to avoid at all costs. It's probably at the top of the list. Next, and this one is very important as well, is fried foods. You want to stay away from fried foods. And the reason being is when you have a protein and you fry that protein in an oil, you get something called acrylamide. Acrylamide is a chemical that is extremely toxic to the body. It leads to inflammation. It's carcinogenic. So that's, over time, when we keep consuming these carcinogens and the inflammation keeps building and building, we end up with all kinds of issues, and eventually something's going to break. So you have to stay away from all fried foods. That includes chicken. That includes, fried potatoes, potato chips, corn chips, anything like that that has an oil in it that's been fried will have acrylamide in it. Which brings us right to oils in a bottle. Okay, so there's this little air gap when you have oil in a bottle, and that air gap has oxygen in it. Okay, and oils oxidize very quickly in that bottle. Okay, so when you cook with the oil, that oxidation process happens very rapidly, and this can be very carcinogenic to the body. And as you cook with them and you consume them and you take all these carcinogens in, you contribute to inflammation, heart disease, all kinds of things like that, and that can pile up very quickly and cause issues, and something eventually will break. Look at the lowest life expectancy in the United States is in the South right now. Okay, it's been in the South for a while. Why is that? Why is the life expectancy far lower than the rest of the United States? Because fried food is what they do. So you have to avoid oils in a bottle. Now, that being said, occasionally I will use certain oils for medical nutrition therapy, but I tend to use the ones that go rancid much slower, like coconut oil, and I would use that bottle up quickly before we can get much oxidation, coupled with the fact that I'll use anti-inflammatory supplements and things like that as well. So what do you cook with then? Well, that's simple. Butter or lard. And I'm not talking Crisco. I'm talking rendered animal fat, just like Grandma and Grandpa used to do. Do not use margarine. Margarine is a big ball of trans fat, and that is awful for you. Real cream and salt butter is what you want. Okay, so let's talk about meat. There's a big battle that's raging on right now between veganism and meat eaters. Now, I don't want to take a political stance one way or another because it can work both ways. However, I will say this about meat. I get where the vegans are. They just can't stand the thought of, eating a dead animal that's suffered, and I get that. And I do believe that we do need to be kinder to animals. We need to get back to ethical farming where, things are cage free and grass fed and animals are treated with respect. However, being a true vegan is a very difficult thing to do because any food that has a complete protein usually comes from an animal. Now, you can mismatch amino acids together eating certain vegetables and things like that, but one of the things that you're going to have a really hard time getting is your essential fatty acids, omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9, and to get your complete set of the amino acids that are required for you to take in with your diet. One piece of meat has all of those essential amino acids. The only other thing that comes close to that is soy on the vegan side, and we've already talked about the dangers of soy and how bad that can be. So in my opinion, to be a vegan that's going to stay healthy, you need to supplement. You have to supplement and balance omega-3, 6s, and 9s, and you need to supplement your complete amino acids to make sure that you get those amino acids every single day. Because you look at somebody that's vegan who doesn't eat meat, there's far, far higher incidences of brain disorders, including dementia, that come into play as they get older because they had not been getting those essential fatty acids and the cholesterol that's in animal foods that are essential for brain function. They are essential. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that's my take on meat. Now, that being said about meat, you want to have meat, if you're going to eat it, medium rare to rare. The problem is when you cook meat, especially on a grill, and you get that blackened charred spot on meat, you are making a chemical compound called heterocyclic amines. Heterocyclic amines are, you guessed it, carcinogenic and very bad for you. So that's where it comes into play when people talk about how eating meat can cause cancer. That's how. The best thing you can do is broil your meat. Grilling is really not good. It's not a healthy way to cook your meat. Cholesterol is very important to get from animal products as well. And I don't care what they say. The allopathic medicine system has got cholesterol completely wrong. Dietary cholesterol has no bearing on your total serum cholesterol whatsoever. Okay, so that's kind of one of these myths that keeps perpetuating and perpetuating while they're giving out these statin drugs, okay? You need cholesterol, and cholesterol definitely comes from animal products, and this has big things to do with brain function, and this has a lot to do with testosterone production and sperm production in males too. So all these incidences of people who are having erectile dysfunction and problems and things like that are having issues with cholesterol most of the time. Okay, so you also need to avoid meat with nitrates. This is like pre-sliced meats. When you go to the butcher shop, a lot of times steaks will be injected and it gives it kind of that red color and it acts as a preservative. But the problem with nitrates, and especially when you cook nitrates, they turn to nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are very carcinogenic once again and cause inflammation. So that's something you really need to avoid. And it's not really that difficult anymore to avoid that. A lot of stores are giving nitrate-free options with sliced hams and bacon, uncured, and things like that. So look out for those. And if you want to go to a butcher shop and get your meat, for holidays and things like that, tell them that you want nitrate-free. They will give it to you nitrate-free, especially if you tell them that you have an allergy to nitrates. So that's definitely something you need to avoid. Also on baked potatoes. Another thing with baked potatoes is when you bake a potato and that skin becomes crispy, or you fry potatoes with skins on them, and that can include yams, sweet potatoes, whatever has a skin, a potato skin, you end up with heterocyclic amines. And as we know already from charring meat, very carcinogenic, very pro-inflammatory. So once again, potato skins crispy, you need to avoid. You can boil potatoes or put them in a crock pot or something like that, and the skins will be just fine. It's when you get them hard and crispy is when you need to avoid the skins of any kind of potato. The next thing, and I really don't want this thing anywhere near your lips or anywhere where you can even get close to smelling it, is carbonated beverages, especially soda, pop, that stuff. It's good for nothing. Okay, if you want caffeine, there's other ways to get caffeine. There's coffee, there's tea, which are a lot healthier for you than those beverages. Those are terrible. It's they're finding out that especially in the diets, sodas where they have artificial sweeteners, they're finding out that there's links to MS, arthritis. They're very acidic. A Diet Coke actually is one of the best things, or Coca-Cola, to remove rust off of a bumper. So these are things that you really don't want to put into your body. However, as far as the other carbonated beverages, let's say Perrier or whatever it is that you're drinking, beer, those are fine to drink in moderation, obviously, but not with a meal. You do not want to drink a carbonated beverage with a meal because the carbonation is alkaline. Okay, so when you drink it, yes, the overall beverage might be acidic, but with the carbonation, that neutralizes stomach acid, and people are already walking around in the United States with weak stomach acid as it is. Not a lot of people get enough calcium, and calcium and chloride are some of the major factors in determining whether somebody has heartburn or not, the acidity of their stomach. The chief cells need to squirt out acid because your stomach is like a big bag of acid, and it literally is supposed to be able to digest nearly everything. So the weaker your stomach acid is, the less likely you're going to absorb the nutrients that you bring in as food. And finally, we come to the big 5,000-pound elephant that's in the room. And we can debate back and forth, and I know that I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this because people are still not sold on the science of this, but you must avoid wheat. Wheat gluten, that includes barley, oats, rye. Terrible. And there's two reasons why. Not only have they been modified over the years to create thicker wheat glutens, but wheat gluten is the problem, and most people don't even know that they have problems with wheat gluten. Because you see, what wheat gluten actually is it's a protein, okay? It's a long chain of amino acids that are bonded together, okay? So when you already have weak stomach acid, like most people do, and you eat these glutens, okay, your stomach's job is to break up proteins and turn it into individual amino acids that can be absorbed by the body and used as energy, right? So when you have a wheat gluten, you have these long chains of these amino acids chained together, and with already weak stomach acid, most people can't break the bonds that hold those amino acids together. So you don't digest the wheat gluten completely. It enters the next phase out of the stomach and gets sucked up for the nutrients by the small intestines, right? Well, what happens is you got these long chains, and you can imagine, like, when the wife decorates the Christmas tree, she has those long strings of beads she puts on there. Okay, imagine sucking that up with a vacuum cleaner. Okay, because that's what it's like. You have these strings of these glutens getting sucked up in there, and you're causing damage. Okay, and eventually you end up with things like leaky gut, Crohn's disease, things like that, where you get all this damage to your gut. And then you have this protruding belly, you get all kinds of systemic inflammation, you have IBS, all these different problems. So it's in your best interest for that reason alone to avoid wheat gluten. Now the second problem with wheat gluten is almost all of the wheat, and oats especially, in the United States is contaminated with, you guessed it, Roundup, which we already know is carcinogenic, on top of the fact that they use it as a desiccant, okay, to dry. So even conventional non-GMO wheat is sprayed in the United States, and almost all of it is. It's very hard to find unsprayed, clean, whole wheat. And even if you do, a lot of times, like I said, you may have problems breaking up the wheat gluten. So all these problems that you're seeing with psoriasis and eczema and all these different what they call autoimmune disorders are being caused by the wheat gluten. It's causing systemic inflammation and all kinds of problems. Those complex carbohydrates are the real problem for some of the issues like high cholesterol and things like that, causing inflammation within the body, causing heart disease, causing blood sugar issues. Wheat gluten is just something that you really need to start avoiding at all costs.